There is a moment, and if you have ever watched Jimin perform live, you know exactly the moment I am talking about, where everything stops making sense. Where your brain tries to process what your eyes are seeing and simply cannot. Where a man is moving through space in a way that does not feel physically possible, his arms carving slow, impossible arcs through the air, his body folding and extending like water finding its shape, and somehow his voice is doing the same thing at the same time. Soaring, controlled, emotionally devastating. And you are sitting there, maybe at a stadium with 50,000 people around you, or maybe alone at 2 in the morning watching a fan cam on your phone, and you think, how is this a person? How does a human being do this? That question has an answer. And the answer is one of the most compelling stories in modern performance art. Because what ParkJimin does on a stage is not an accident, not a natural gift that just appeared one day, and absolutely not something that can be understood by watching a 10-second clip. What Jimin does on a stage is a result of one of the most extraordinary journeys of dedication, self-transformation, and artistic discipline that the music industry has seen in a generation. And today, we're going to talk about all of it. Let us start at the very beginning. Not because it is a nice place to start, but because if you skip the beginning with Jimin, you miss everything. ParkJimin was born on October 13th, 1995, in Busan, South Korea. He was not the kid who grew up dreaming of K-pop. He was not the kid who plastered idol posters on his bedroom wall and vowed to one day stand on those stages. What Jimin was, from a young age, was someone who felt things deeply and who discovered, somewhere in middle school, that movement was the language he understood best. He started attending Just Dance Academy in middle school, learning popping and locking, and something clicked. Not in a casual way, in the way that changes a life. By the time he entered Busan High School of Arts, Jimin had made a decision. He chose contemporary dance as a specialization, not the high-energy, crowd-pleasing style that would later define K-pop choreography, but the demanding, technically rigorous, emotionally driven world of contemporary dance. The kind of dance that requires you to understand your own body at a cellular level. The kind that demands not just precision but meaning, where every movement must communicate something, must tell a story, must make the audience feel something even if they do not know why. And in this world, Jimin did not just survive. He arrived as the top student in the modern dance department. His teacher at Busan High School of Arts later appeared on a Korean variety show and recalled what Jimin was like in those years. He described how, whenever he explained the correct muscle engagement for a specific movement, describing exactly how a muscle should shape during a gesture, Jimin would come back the next day and say, "Teacher, I practiced the move so many times, and my muscles have shaped very well." Let that land for a second. This was not a teenager doing homework. This was a teenager going home and deliberately, consciously reshaping his own musculature through repetition until his body matched the technical ideal his teacher had described. He was engineering himself, and he was doing it before anyone had ever told him he might one day be famous. That teacher saw what was happening and made a suggestion that would change everything. Jimin should audition for an entertainment company. In 2012, Jimin walked into a big hit entertainment audition and performed, combining vocal ability with a contemporary dance routine, and the judges accepted him on the spot. He was 17 years old. He had been formally training in modern dance for a matter of years, and he had just been handed the door to a completely different world. There was only one problem. The world of K-pop performance is almost entirely different from the world of contemporary dance. Contemporary dance is built around individual expression, flow, and emotional authenticity. K-pop choreography is built around synchronization, precision, high-energy execution, and the ability to perform complex, fast-moving group formations for extended periods of time while singing. Jimin had to learn an entirely new physical language. He had to retrain muscles that had been built for one thing to do something fundamentally different. And he had to do this while simultaneously learning to sing, learning to perform in front of cameras, learning the demanding structure of idol training, and doing it as the very last person to join what would become BTS, with just 6 months of trainee time before their debut. 6 months. Think about what that means. The other members had been training for years. Jimin arrived with 6 months. And from the moment he arrived, he made a decision. He would outwork everyone. He was always the first person in the practice room. He was always the last person to leave. In an interview years later, he mentioned that in the early days of BTS, he often would not go to bed until 4 in the morning, and then his alarm would go off just 2 hours later. Not because the schedule demanded it, because he demanded it of himself. Because when he looked at the gap between where he was and where he felt he needed to be, he saw it not as a limitation, but as a problem to solve. And he solved problems the only way he knew, by refusing to stop working. Jungkook, who is himself one of the most gifted performers in the industry, said it directly in an interview. After debut, I said, "I have never seen anyone practice this much during my trainee period. And that person is Jimin Hyung." And Jin, who has watched Jimin work for over a decade, put it even more simply, he is perfect on stage. So I wonder how he is able to work tirelessly. I practice with RM in the corner, and when I am tired, I take a look at Jimin. He's still working then. He's still working then. 4 words that tell you everything about what kind of performer ParkJimin is. But here is where the story gets more complicated, more human, and honestly more moving. Because Jimin's work ethic was not just about ambition. It was also driven by something darker and more difficult, doubt. In the documentary series Burn the Stage, which followed BTS during their Wings tour, Jimin opened up about his perfectionism in a way that was almost uncomfortable to watch. He talked about how a single small mistake on stage, something that maybe no one in the audience noticed, something that perhaps only he could hear or feel, would make him feel genuinely guilty. Others could say it is not a big deal, he said. But that one thing makes me feel guilty, and I start to get stressed out because of it. More so because I cannot do anything about it. This is not the psychology of someone performing for applause. This is the psychology of an artist who has internalized an ideal so completely that the distance between the ideal and reality becomes a source of genuine pain. Jimin was not performing to impress audiences. He was performing against the vision of what a performance should be that existed inside his own head. A vision that was always slightly ahead of him, always one step further than he had managed to go. And that gap, that permanent, irreducible gap between the performance and the ideal, drove him to keep working. What makes this remarkable is that the same audiences watching from the outside, the 50,000 people in the stadium, the millions watching live broadcasts, were consistently experiencing something that most performers only dream of achieving. Because what Jimin's perfectionism produced, paradoxically, was not stiff technical execution but extraordinary emotional resonance. When you watch Jimin perform live, his solo from the Wings album, a piece built on contemporary and popping technique depicting psychological unraveling, what you see is not a perfectly executed sequence of movements. What you see is a human being telling a story with every cell in his body. Billboard called him the modern dance king, and wrote that he took things to another level with his expressive delivery of the song's dramatic choreography, telling a message as much with his body as his vocals. Rolling Stone India listed Lai among the 8 most unforgettable contemporary dance performances by K-pop artists in history. And Cho Young-in, director of the Korea Institute of Culture and Arts, an academic institution and not a fan platform, said of Jimin's work, it can be said that he was greatly influenced by modern dance, which is his major. The modern dance he learned met K-pop and opened up new possibilities. That is a formal arts institution acknowledging that what Jimin created was not just impressive pop performance. It was something genuinely new. A synthesis. A form of expression that had not existed before, and that exists because of the specific combination of who ParkJimin is and what he chose to do with that. Now let us talk about something that people who have not performed live often do not fully understand. The physical reality of what Jimin and BTS as a group actually do on stage. Singing live is hard. Dancing at the level BTS dances is hard. Doing both simultaneously, for a full concert set, night after night, across dozens of shows on a world tour, is something that sits at the absolute outer boundary of what the human body can be trained to do. There is a reason why BTS became known for their training methods. Suga revealed in interviews that during preparation for major tours, the members trained using oxygen deprivation masks, the same type of masks used by elite athletes to simulate high-altitude conditions, restrict airflow, and dramatically increase cardiovascular demand. The logic is precise and demanding. If you can sing while your body believes it is being deprived of oxygen, you can sing while doing anything. You build a kind of lung capacity and breath control that allows a voice to remain stable while a body is in full, high-intensity motion. This is not a shortcut. There are no shortcuts in what Jimin does. The oxygen mask training, the hours in the practice room at 4 in the morning, the deliberate reshaping of muscle groups to match a teacher's description of how a movement should feel from the inside. All of it accumulates. All of it compounds. And what it produces is a performer who can stand in the middle of a 60,000-person stadium and, while executing full choreography, deliver vocal lines with the kind of nuanced, emotionally specific control that most singers can only achieve standing still in a recording studio. The specific challenge of Jimin's voice makes this even more remarkable. His vocal tone, described consistently as delicate, sweet, and distinctive, with a falsetto range that is immediately recognizable, is not a powerful, bellowing instrument built for stadium delivery. It is an instrument built for intimacy, for precision, for emotional specificity. His voice does not boom. It lands. And making something that lands rather than booms audible and emotionally present across a stadium while your body is moving through complex choreography, while you are maintaining synchronization with 6 other performers, while you are making eye contact with fans in the front row and fans in the upper deck, is a technical challenge of almost absurd complexity. Suga, who in a genuine moment of artistic honesty and burn the stage told Jimin directly that he personally prefers Jimin's vocal color over other members' voices, understood this. "I am not trying to say who is better than who," he said. "I personally like Jimin's vocals. I like Jimin's voice better. It is my taste." From a member known for his sharp, unvarnished honesty, that is not a small thing to say. Consider what the Arirang World Tour itself represents in the context of the story. BTS completed their mandatory military service and returned to the stage not with a cautious, small-scale comeback, but with one of the largest world tours ever mounted by any musical act. Over 85 shows, 34 cities, 23 countries, a 360-degree, in-the-round stage design that places the audience at the center of the experience and demands that every single angle of every single performance is fully realized. There is no back of a stage on a 360-degree setup. There is no safe corner where a performer can coast. Every direction is the front. Every moment is visible to someone. For a perfectionist like Jimin, this is not a challenge. This is the natural habitat because he has never allowed himself a back-of-stage moment in his entire career. The physical demands of this tour structure are worth pausing on. When BTS performed 3 consecutive nights in Mexico City, they were performing after a run that already included Goyang, Tokyo, Tampa, and El Paso. These are not shows where you drive in, stand on a stage, and go home. These are multi-hour productions involving complex synchronized choreography, live vocals, elaborate staging sequences, and the kind of crowd interaction that requires performers to be fully emotionally present for every single moment. By the time BTS reached Mexico City, they had been living inside this production, night after night, for weeks. And Jimin was still walking out and delivering performances that left observers without adequate words to describe them. By 2026, ParkJimin is one of the most globally impactful solo artists in music. His song Like Crazy made history as the first song by a Korean solo artist to debut at #1 on the US Billboard Hot 100. His second album, Muse, produced Who, a song that has now surpassed 2.4 billion streams on Spotify, achieved without collaboration with any major Western artist, while spending 659 consecutive days on Spotify's daily top songs chart. It sits at number 37 on Spotify's all-time most streamed songs list, the highest position of any K-pop solo song without a collaboration. These numbers do not exist because of promotional campaigns or industry machinery. They exist because people keep choosing, of their own free will, to listen. Mexico understood this. When BTS arrived for the Arirang World Tour, 150,000 people across 3 nights witnessed what years of dedication, refinement, and perfectionism look like when they are fully realized. Jimin arrived with long blonde hair and a classic suit, stepped onto a balcony at Mexico's National Palace, and 50,000 fans gathered in Zocalo Square erupted. Before the first concert note was played, before a single dance move had been executed, the reaction was seismic. Not because of hype, because a decade of genuine artistry creates a kind of gravity that draws people in without needing to be explained. On stage, Jimin took a microphone and read phrases he had personally prepared in Spanish, because when you are ParkJimin, you do not simply perform at people. You reach toward them in their own language. He said, "You listen to our songs a lot, right? Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I did not know you would be this amazing here. You really know how to have fun. You are the best. I love you more than anyone." There is one more dimension to this story that deserves its own space. It is not the technical skill, though the technical skill is extraordinary. It is not the work ethic, though the work ethic is almost mythological. It is something harder to name, the quality that his fellow members, experts, and audiences around the world have been circling for years without quite pinning down. Presence, but more specific than that. What Jimin has is the ability to make you feel that what is happening on stage is happening specifically for you. Not for the crowd, for you. Olympic figure skater Yuzuru Hanyu, one of the most technically decorated athletes in the history of his sport, said in 2021 that Jimin was a source of inspiration for his own dance movements on the ice. Director Gus Van Sant named Jimin in 2019 as the artist he most wished to work with. Ryan Gosling personally gifted Jimin the guitar his character Ken used in the film Barbie, because Jimin's permission to dance music video outfit had directly inspired the costume design for that role. These are not connections manufactured by a PR team. They are moments of genuine artistic recognition flowing across industries, across languages, across entirely different creative worlds, all converging on the same person. This is why, when you watch Jimin perform in 2026, what you see is not someone trying to be perfect. What you see is someone performing from a place of deep artistic confidence, built over years of work and doubt and growth. The technical foundation is so deeply embedded it has become invisible. The voice, the body, the stage are no longer separate things he is managing simultaneously. They are one instrument, and he plays it like someone who has earned the right to play it. Not by being gifted, by being relentless. There is a moment, and you will recognize it when it happens, whether you're watching live or through a screen, where the crowd goes quiet. Not the kind of quiet that comes from confusion or disappointment. The specific, weighted quiet that comes when something undeniably real is happening and everyone present instinctively understands that speaking would break it. That is the Jimin quiet. That is the moment when the years of work, the muscle memory built at 4 a.m, the tears after imperfect performances, the oxygen masks in the training room, the deliberate reshaping of a body to match a teacher's description of what a movement should feel like from the inside. When all of that arrives, simultaneously, in a single gesture, a single note, a single breath held slightly longer than expected before it releases. What ParkJimin built, over 2 decades of work that began in a dance school in Busan, is not a career in the conventional sense. It is a body of practice, a continuously evolving, deeply considered, technically extraordinary practice of being present on a stage and making that presence mean something. He did not inherit this. He did not stumble into it. He built it piece by piece, through choices that most people would find unreasonable, sustained over a period of time that most people would find incomprehensible, driven by a standard that most people would find impossibly demanding. And the result of all of that is visible every time the lights go down, and a crowd of tens of thousands holds its breath, waiting. The silence before Jimin moves is not empty. It is full of everything he has given to get to that moment. And when he finally moves, when the first note lands, the crowd answers, and what you are hearing is not just applause. It is recognition. It is the sound of people who have been shown something true.